Let's talk about text effects. You can find the text effects nodes in the toolbox under the category text. Down here you have the text effects, and if you right click we have here 6 text effects. We will go through all of them from top to bottom. So to do that we obviously need some text in our scene to work with text effects. Actually the text effects working on the 3D text as well on the 2D text. So let's start now maybe with that text 3D, that's okay. If you want to add text effects to your text, then you basically have to put them in between this binding, onto this binding actually, okay? So to do that, you simply drag and drop that text effects bundle over that binding until it's highlighted, and then you release, and then you can choose which text effect you want to use. We will start with the ShrinkToFit effect. So let's do that now, and let's also scale our text a bit up. And we will also, let's make that a bit smaller here. Our text editor is okay. We will need that soon. And let's also center that text quickly in the scene. Text alignment center and line alignment center as well. So now our 3D text is nicely centered here in the scene. Okay. So let's check the properties from our text effect node here, right? From that ShrinkToFit effect node. So what we basically have is a width and a height, and we have a shrink mode. So these are basically the important properties for this node. And down here we have a category for scaling and for limits. So these two categories basically work together, right? So you can activate the limits here, and you can adjust the limits down here, right, in percentage or for character spacing and things like that. So to explain this effect node, I simply turn on the bounding box, and as you can see, we have here a width and a height of 4. If we change that width, then this bounding box will get larger. If we make it smaller than our text is, then the mode or this text effect node will basically shrink this text down now, okay? So let's also try that with the height. As that bounding box gets smaller, then you can see this effect node is shrinking our text, that it never goes out of this bounding box, which we basically set up here, okay? So let's change now our shrink mode from scale and squeeze to layout and scale. To do that, we also have to type in here some other text. Let's call it home button, for example. And as you can see already, the text is now getting into a nice layout by this text effect node, basically, right? Because we have now 2 words, right? So, and as you can see, if we change here now our width, then this text effect node will also automatically adjust the lines, right? So this node is very handy if you have some user interfaces, or if you create some buttons where you want to make sure that text is not going over a certain area, right? Basically over this bounding box area, or if you have some dynamic changing text, right, from some databases, then you also can use this effect node to nicely create limits that text is never going over some certain area. Let's talk about the circle effect now. To do that, we simply delete that last effect node, and we drag and drop that new effect node over our binding here. And this is the circle effect. So let's also quickly change our name, and let's call it circle effect. And as you can see down here in the render window, this effect is already affecting our text, right? So, and as you can see, we only have 2 properties, the angle and the radius. So with the angle, we simply can effect basically the rotation of our text, of our characters, right? And with the radius, we can define the size or the radius of this circle effect. So let's check out now our next effect, and that's the spark effect. So we choose simply here our spark effect. And if we check here our properties, we have a progress, right? And as you can see, by default, 0 to 100%, our characters basically will fly in from the top right corner into their position, right? We also have here the option to change the direction, right, from near to far, from far to near, right? So it's coming from the top left corner. We also can change that to center, and as well to random, right? So let's change that to random. And now you can see the characters flying in randomly, right? We also have more access or options to change this behavior down here, right? Where we simply can say our x-axis is only affecting the positive x-axis or the negative or none or both. Let's bring that to both now from the x. And now you can see our X characters flying basically in from the left to the right and from the right to the left. We also can adjust this here in the Y-axis, also maybe to both. And now you can see that we have basically top, bottom, left, right, and from all that 4 directions, the characters will flying in. Let's check out our next effect. To do that, we simply drag and drop that new text effect over our binding. And this time we talk about the scale effect. Let's also change the text here quickly to scale effect. Let's check our properties of our scale effect. As you can see, we have very similar setups here in that properties like in the previous one, in the Spark effects node. So we also have that progress bar, and as you can see already what this effect node is doing. And the same like in the previous effect node, you simply can change directions, random scaling, right, of characters, and you also can define more settings down here. So let's check out the next effect node. Let's delete that and let's drag and drop that in, and this will be our rotate effect. And let's also change the name quickly to rotate effect. And let's check the properties. And again, very similar setups like in the last 2 nodes, basically, right? Again, the progress. And as you can see, we have this nice little rotating effect, right? And what you also can see, this node is basically, it's not fading in or fading out, right? So if we are at 0 or at 100, then we basically have exactly the same positions, right? So this is the effect what you can use if you want to, if you want to combine it with other effects, for example, right? And as well, also down here, you also have different options to adjust these behaviors, basically. So now let's talk about the last text effect node. Let's delete this rotate effect and simply drag and drop another one, the last one, and that's our alpha effect. And like you probably guess already, this effect is simply fading in and fading out the text, based on the settings what you do here, on the speed, on the direction, on the range, and on the start and on the end, right, where you can give basically transparency values from 0 to 100 for the start and for the end as well. You're also able to stack multiple text effect nodes over each other or behind each other, however we will call that. So as you can see, if we have here now our alpha, then I simply add another rotate effect here. Now the alpha, let's check that out. The alpha is still working and our rotate effect is also working as well.